Now we're going to the Temple of Darkness. This place is a piece of shit. I'll explain why as we get there. And like, the basic experience of going through it, like, it's a dungeon. And like, I like going through Zelda dungeons, but if that alone made it good, then you could say that Zelda Parallel Worlds was the best game ever. And it's not. It's got a dungeon where you have to trial and error fall into a whole bunch of different holes and load a state if you fall into the wrong one. Yeah, it starts out fine. I really like how you can charge up an arrow and just break through jars. Like, not just a whole row of enemies, which is really satisfying, but also jars. That's cool. Still feels... It feels underwhelming getting to, like, hit the crystal switches without getting to actually walk on top of them and take advantage of the fact that, yeah, they're raised, they're of a higher elevation. So when you stand on top of them, you're of a higher elevation. But you only get to really do that in Link Between Worlds. It's weird that they never translated that concept of a puzzle to 3D. Or maybe they did in Ocarina of Time, but I don't remember seeing that in any playthroughs. These guys act different in the GBA areas for some reason. In the GBA areas, they act actually reasonable, because you just attack them with the sword, and that's it. They don't annoyingly jump back. I swear, I was hitting them with the arrows multiple times, and the arrows were just flying past them, not really doing anything. So that sucked. But yeah, you've got a kind of really empty level design 2D area. The thing about this dungeon is that there is a lot of backtracking. Here I thought that there's going to be a door that I could progress through, because it really looked like there could be, but instead there's just, like, here you can go to the right. There's an indent in the wall, but it's totally pointless. Just a pointless skeleton decoration. Like, this place is called a temple, and yet, like, this is what they do with the skeletons. Is this like a crypt, and Ganon's minions just desecrated all of the tombs to do this? I really regret getting the hammer. I mean, maybe it's mandatory to get it that earlier, but look at how shit the range of the hammer is. I mean, holy shit. Like, the hitbox is terrible. I clearly hit him and missed. I mean, even Link to the Past has better range for the hammer. I can understand why it's not used in that many top-down Zelda games. I mean, it's just atrocious. I mean, ugh. Like, the arrows are so much better to have here. I do like this, though. Like, you get to push around a building again, and this time it's in a dungeon. And you get a Deku Scrub complaining to you about pushing the boulder with him in it. The building with him in it. I think it's supposed to be a pedestal for, like, they're planning on putting a statue of Ganon on top of it. Why they have that being hollow so that someone can be inside of it, I have no fucking clue. And the music isn't that great. Like, it's the music of the Dark World dungeon theme from Link to the Past, but they don't really do anything fancy with it, so it just feels like unoriginal for no reason. And for some weird reason, now I'm not allowed to push it with the horizontal formation when I was able to do that earlier just fine. Which didn't make much sense because one of the Links was clearly pushing on an open door. But only just now did it inconvenience me. Like, it's weird. The crystal switches, like, sometimes you're allowed to... Sometimes you have to hit them all simultaneously, and sometimes you don't. Like, it would be nice if, like, the ones that you did have to hit simultaneously looked different. Like, that would have been more intuitive. It's not really that intuitive that you can actually pull the building. Pushing makes sense, but what surface do you have to grab onto and pull? Like, this is the kind of thing that I expect you to have to get power bracelets for. Like, you're strong, like all 4 links aren't strong enough to lift a tree unless they get a power bracelet. But without the power bracelet, they're strong enough to push a building. Okay then. Seems kinda inconsistent to me, but whatever. You think that an empty building would weigh way more than a tree. Especially a tree that looks as old as the ones that you get to lift up. But look, even the shockwave that gets created when you attack the ground isn't as large as in Links of the Past, because it wasn't flipping over. I had to be so close to it to flip it over. Okay, it makes sense that it has so much impact that when it hits you, it knocks you over like that. Well, it doesn't knock you over on your back, fortunately, but it's still annoying. It makes sense, though. Oh yeah, this totally rewards skill. I beat him quickly, so they reward me by completely cheating me out of a whole bunch of force gems. You have to intentionally let the battle drag on before you're able to get all the force gems. You're not going to be able to have Pegasus boots or bombs at that point, so you won't be able to... Look, and the shockwave is so small, it only stunned like a few enemies. And here, the fact that the numbers show up, it's a problem because it blocked my view of the enemies I was attacking. So I just kept on... I accidentally walked into them and got contact damage dealt, which was annoying. Speaking of annoying, I figured out the reason I hate these guys. In Link to the Past, you could attack them and damage them. But in this game, you have to attack them and hit them into pits, which is good for, in theory, it's good for forcing variety in the combat, because you can't just attack him with a sword. But in practice, the ricochet physics are just crap. Like, you hit them from a certain way. You hit them from a certain side of them, and you expect to send them in a way that they aren't sent, which is really annoying. So it's a lot harder to send them into pits than you'd expect. Like, they aren't sent into pits. It glitched out. That's great. You know, like, this part of the dungeon really made me... Every time I'm wandering around aimlessly trying to figure out where the hell the Dark World portal is, it really makes me resent the fact that they have to crawl along every single inch of the floor until finally you get the sparkles and stuff. I figured this one out pretty quickly because it just seemed intuitive to me. Like, every other one you lit up. Now, in the multiplayer, though still divided into 2 halves, one of the rooms in this dungeon is completely different. You have to split up your party and enter through different doorways. The links at the south side of the room should go grab the hammer and use it on the stakes, then step on the switch to lower the barrier on the north side of the room. Then the link has to put the hammer back so the link on the other side can use it to return the favor. The link that's able to use the portal must step on a star switch in the Dark World to lower the first barrier in the Light World. The other players can then step on a switch below Jars to lower the barrier in the Dark World. Then you have to step on one more switch in the Dark World to be on your way. Also, the Dark World portals at the northeast end of the temple are color-coded in multiplayer mode. That means that only one of the players will be able to talk to each pair of Deku Scrubs for clues later. But yeah, you have to destroy the enemy in the Dark World. Like, it's weird. Like, they're miniature versions of the Knights of Hyrule, which is confusing. Like, I instinctively thought, well, like, I instinctively got into the mindset that I'm fighting the Knights of Hyrule, but I'm not. Like, isn't it kind of confusing? But yeah, you just fall down this specific area. Like, you have to memorize the level design of the lower area so that you know where to fall on the higher one. And here is where I'm completely overwhelmed, because there's so many different items. In multiplayer, this would be fine, because you have 4 links, at best, so 4 inventory slots. Okay. But instead, it's like I can only have one item. Which one am I supposed to get? The puzzle in this room is that you can't hit all of the switches with just one item. The best thing to do is to... The reason I got the Pegasus boots in the first place was because I figured maybe you can upgrade them and go over the pit. But yeah, the best thing to do is to get the boomerang, because that can go diagonally and hit switches that way. So it can hit the most switches, and then for the final one you have to use a far-reaching projectile attack. Oh, seriously, why would they put the shovel in here? Do you get to use the shovel in this place at all? There's no outdoor section. You can't... Why would they program an item that you can't use? Like, it's a decoy that's just a waste of everybody's time, including the programmer. Like, why? This dungeon's confusing. There's a lot of backtracking you have to do. Like theoretically, what? See, the Shadow Links are so inconsistent. The arrow went right through him when normally in a proper boss battle you'd be able to stun him with it. And I wasn't expecting to stun him, but to at least deal some damage. Instead, the arrow went straight through him, and I wasn't expecting him to be the type of Shadow Link that would have a fire rod. I was expecting him to be a Shadow Link that, like most Shadow Links, would just hop over, and then you would place your link accordingly. Also, isn't it great that I got knocked into the Dark World because the big bomb landed on me? That was fun. Not totally a pointless waste of time. But yeah, like, the Shadow Links, like, they should really put more effort into differentiating them. Because if they all look the same, then that's bad game design, because you have no idea what they're going to do before they do it and surprise you. I mean, playing the level multiple times will help, but you shouldn't have to do that. I always kind of wished as a kid that the crystal switches would have more than just two colors. Like, there would be, like, I guess that would be kind of overcomplicated, but still. I hate these guys so much when it's not the GBA areas, because they just keep jumping away from you. Like, oh, that time it got hit by the arrows. They're just so obnoxious and tedious. At least in Link Between Worlds, you can stun them with the giant shockwave of the hammer. But in this game, you can't. You're just totally helpless against them. I was trying to use the bow, and in any other game, I would have slaughtered them. Especially because I have 4 links in a row, so that's 4 different arrows. And here sucks too, because you have no way of knowing which direction you have to push the block to progress. And here you're completely overwhelmed by Wizzrobes on all sides, some of which send snowballs at me, which looks so much like glowing light that when I got frozen by them, I was completely confused and caught off guard. Because, they didn't look like ice Wizzrobes. If at least Minish Cap has the ice Wizzrobes clearly look different to make it clear that they're ice Wizzrobes, but these guys, it doesn't really look like they're shooting ice at all. At least it's possible for them to only freeze some of the links, and not necessarily all of them, but since all the links are connected to you, it still kind of inconveniences you. I wonder if you're absolutely forced to talk to all the Deku Scrubs before you're allowed to do what they're cluing you into and have it work. Yeah, there is a lot of backtracking in this dungeon. And not even... like, even if you memorize the level design, you still have to do backtracking. Because you have to go all over the place to bring keys to places. And get... I get so frustrated. Like, there should really be... those lamps should have been right before this dark room. Instead of being in a place where they completely overwhelm you with all the items. And here I fell into a dark room and I immediately got out because I was put in the mindset of, okay, there has to be a switch somewhere that I stand on it and it'll light it up. Because I was reminded of Hyrule Castle, where you had that exact situation, not to mention Kakariko Village. But instead, this place is just permanently dark black void. Not that it really matters because you can see the chests and links as clear as day anyways. So really, it's not like it's dark, it's that it's just a place that has just a black floor, and it's the most laziest level design ever. And I lost the key at one point because I made a screen transition when all my links were separated with one link that wasn't holding the key, and for probably the third time the game forgot that I was holding a key and forced me to go get it again. Which really sucked. Like, the reason I made that mistake absentmindedly because, well, one I was distracted listening to something in the background, but two, you aren't allowed to roll when you're holding something, and you're forced to hold keys over your head for some reason. So naturally, I switched to another Link who could roll, and then it's so unintuitive that you have to get all the links gathered before you make a screen transition, because you never have to do that. You can fortunately make a screen transition with just one link if you want to, but suddenly they changed the rules if one of the links is carrying something. And what is the point of having the oil jars? Like, you can actually get the Force Gem with the lamp just fine, which was a pleasant surprise because I thought that they would just be stupid and not let you do that. Because it's like, the bombs can clearly generate fire, but they aren't allowed to light torches. So I thought it was going to be the same thing where only the fire from the oil jars can get you the Force Gems, but instead that's not the case. So all that the oil jars are there for is to give you another way of getting the Force Gems. But how are you not going to have a lantern by that point? They could just use regular jars that don't damage you when you break them. Yeah, this isn't cheap at all. Ugh. Well, fortunately, I managed to avoid getting hurt. Only to get hurt afterwards, because you can apparently get hurt while you're summoning, like, links to you. This is just an annoyance. Like, this is a perfect example of how the ricochet physics are terrible in this game. In a Link to the Past, I would have easily sent him into the pit by now. But they don't get sent in the direction that you expect them to. I was clearly attacking them from the right, and they weren't going directly left. They were going like up and down. It felt so random where they go. Like, if you're going to have a challenge where you ricochet them in the pits, have it be programmed correctly. Like, this dungeon makes the game go from, this is better than Link to the Past because naturally it's better technology, to this is worse than Link to the Past and worse than Link Between Worlds. Because the style foes are much more annoying. Like, you can't, like, I was trying to use the normal strategy of just hold the sword out and spin attack them, but that didn't really seem to work. They were still causing me a whole bunch of trouble. Like, the enemies are really annoying. It's boring having to constantly backtrack all the time. If it was just completely linear, like Tower of the Flames, then it would be great. Like, you could just, even if it is bland, because it's just, like, hit switches. Like, it seems like a pretty generic dungeon. And again, the ball goes way too far to left or right. Eventually, I figured out that it was better to just attack the ball as close to him as possible. But I was just worried that if I was too close to him, then I wouldn't be able to hit the B button in time. Even though I was mashing it as fast as I possibly could. So I wouldn't be able to actually hit it in time, and before it would just scatter. What's the point of changing the color of the ball if it's single player, and so it doesn't matter? It's not like they changed it so that only one of the links in my group can hit it. That would have been terrible. Like, sure, there's multiple different Phantom Ganons now, but it's not really a challenge because you hit the gray balls and they just disappear. They don't scatter or hurt you. They don't hurt you. They're just there. It's just the same boss fight again, but a little bit more distracting. So the Dark Mirror was stolen, and that's what created all the Shadow Links. It's heavily implied that the Dark Mirror is the same Shadow Mirror, the Mirror of Twilight from Twilight Princess. But how the hell does that make sense? Because Midna destroyed the Shadow Mirror at the end of the game. She completely reduced it to pieces. So how could the Dark Mirror have possibly continued to exist? And yet this is a canon game on the official timeline. And yet there's such a blatant contradiction. They even say that someone sealed the Dark Tribe away with the Dark Mirror of this game. So, is it just an entirely different mirror from the Twilight Mirror that happens to be the exact same way in backstory? Oh yeah, and like I said, there were 2 minutes of backtracking. Like 2 entire minutes of me just going through the same level design again. Like this dungeon just wasn't fun. I was simmering with rage by the time I finally got to the final room. That was redundant. And I don't really see the point of having it be named like Desert of Doubt when like so much of the game is linked to a past reference. You think it could just be called the Desert of Mystery. But I prefer this because it's different level design, so why would it be called the same thing? Why would it be the same place?